Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Rorscach with the weekly comic book roundup. This is actually the last video for the week. We've got the last two King in Black tie-ins, and we got some DC books. So let's get started with those King in Black books right quick. First off, we've got King in Black Namor number 5, including issues of the series where we left off. In the past, the Black Tide was attacking Atlantis, and things weren't. But the Unforgotten Stone was brought to our heroes, and potentially their moment of need. So the issue actually begins in the present, during the final battle against Null's forces. Turns out that Namor had freed 2 of them. And they fought alongside the heroes and villains against Null's forces and eventually saved the day, but they did kind of bring up, what's going to happen when this is all over. In the past, it turns that as the battle rages on outside the city, Dorma uses the Unforgotten Stone as a means of amplifying a spell she was taught in a previous issue, and that actually does seem to do some good against the Black Tide. But all they're really able to do is hold them off. But she recalls something she was told, that you don't control magic with power, you shape it. So the power wants to be used, so she needs to guide it, which is what she does, and they manage to basically freeze the Black Tide. Dorma is briefly mutated by the energies of the stone, but her and Ambrose both seem to be in. Well, she's healed. Ambrose still retains his much larger size, but they both appear to be in good spirits. The Black Tide is banished in Heron's Rift, which is the deepest trench, supposedly the deepest trench in all the oceans. One of them communicates with Namor telepathically as she's being imprisoned. After everything's done with the battle against the King in Black, Namor goes to where they were imprisoned, finds the corpses of those set to guard the dark place, and the soldiers sent to reinforce the guard. The soldiers and the guards will be buried with honor. Their families will never know want. They will be remembered. And Namor knows that eventually the Black Tide will return. And then Dorma manages to communicate with him spiritually, she is kind of hinted that she's dead. When the day comes and the Black Tide returns, she'll be with Namor, swimming by his side as she did long ago, and the Tuma will be there as well. But as the issue ends, Namor feels a glimmer of hope. Not a bad wrap-up. I honestly didn't expect a cliffhanger because, well, Namor's not exactly known for fronting books. The past sections of this were interesting. It was actually really neat as a series. It was neat seeing a young Namor, it's really young, because his World War II appearances, he's basically an adult. He's an adult. So it was nice seeing the a younger Namor and kind of seeing how his past links to how villains from the World War II era onward are still kind of linked to his pre World War II history, namely Baron von Strucker. All right, moving on, we've got Fantastic Four number 30. Finally, where we left off, Human Torch had been taken over by Null, and because of the spiritual bond between him and his apparent soulmate, an alien woman by the name of Sky, she was taken over as well. So the Invisible Woman had to fight both her and Human Torch. They managed to contact Ben Grimm, who said he was fine, he was on his way, but he was actually also overtaken by Null's influence. So the issue at 40 Yancey Street, Nikki and Joe, the Korean Skrull adopted children of Ben Grimm and Alicia Masters, are taking on some of the nullified neighbors, and Invisible Woman also helps, but Alicia is kind of wanting the kids to, not be involved in the action. Kind of violence isn't how we solve isn't how you solve all things. Spider-Man downstairs, Spider-Man and Mr. Fantastic are working on a security system. Spider-Man explains that no, thing isn't fine. He's been taken over by Null as well. There's an emergency exit to the subway system at 40 Yancey Street, and that's going to be kind of their final stand as nullified Johnny and Ben are heading over. Meanwhile, at the Baxter site, where the Forever Gate is, Dragon Man is facing off against some of the symbiote dragons, while Bentley, Franklin, and Valeria are monitoring the gate. However, Valeria has been taken over by one of the symbiotes. Basically, rips into Franklin, calling him worthless and most useless member of the Fantastic Four. No powers, no smarts. Kept around only out of pity. But Sky attempts to take control of Dragon Man, and he at first, okay, yes, let's do this. And then he explains, oh, by the way, I'm not a dragon, I'm not a man, I'm not a creature of the air. I'm an android. And Sky gets blasted with Bentley's electricity gun. No, actually, that was Valeria. Sue and Reed take on nullified Johnny and Ben with various, basically, not kind of the dark thoughts being brought up, but gotta use the whole oh, the hero's been taken over. Well, I gotta say all kinds of horrid things, and but they managed to at least push them back. And then days later, in the cleanup, Reed and Ben have a beer together, and Reed simply says, can you imagine, explains, the two of us have traveled to the ends of the universe, to multiple universes even. And he asks if Ben can imagine a world where Reed wouldn't forgive him. Franklin's still a little hurt by what Valeria said, but Alicia decides she's going to show Joe and Nikki about art the next day. At the Baxter site, Sky initially suggests removing the binding on Johnny, explaining that they can only be removed if they removed each other at the same time. But he explains, no, leave it. You know, I actually feel complete around you, and turns out before doing this though, he checks the FF locator to see if the Invisible One's there. She's still at the back at 40 Yancey Street, but Valeria learns that no, her costume is. Sue is still looking out for, is still invisibly watching Johnny and Sky. And that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to this week's DC books. Starting with Batman the Detective, #1. So, one thing about the new push when it comes to Infinite Frontier is that there's not a set continuity, there's not a set time. A story could take place in any timeline. A series could take place in any of the various timelines of the DC Omniverse. This is set in an alternate future. It begins with a Wayne Airlines flight being attacked by terrorists. Aboard the plane, however, is Beryl Hutchinson, aka Knight, as in Knight and Squire. There's an explosion aboard the plane. She manages to escape, as do the terrorists, who are wearing white versions of Batman's cowl. The plane crashes. Beryl's shot. Back in Wayne Manor, Bruce Wayne is looking at all this and kind of reflecting. You know, have I really made a difference? And explains that only to not on the scale he wishes he could say. I mean, there are people who if it weren't for him wouldn't be here, but you know, that's about it. So he packs up, heads out to England, and thinking he actually might not come back. Arriving at the crime scene, he's met by Squire. Among the things he brought were some gloves, which he uses to fight off Gentleman Ghost. These gloves are designed to actually be able to touch spirits, to actually be able to allow someone to touch a spirit. They were won in a card game by John Constantine, who cheated. Gave them to Batman because, well, Constantine doesn't like to fight with his hands. Batman goes to see Beryl Knight in the hospital. And apparently the terrorists are back to take out Beryl. So Batman meets them, takes them on. And yeah. Gets injured in fighting them out of a 4th-story window. While most of them escape, he does manage to get to capture one of them. And he's discovered that all the passengers of the plane are people that have been saved by Batman. Basically, someone is trying to undo the good he's done. That is where the issue ends. Not too shabby. Also, concerning a quick review of FF, I mean, again, not the biggest FF fan. I was only reading because it was a King in Black tie-in. It was, you know, there was some predictable moments, but I mean, it wasn't great, it wasn't terrible. It was just, you know, as tie-in stories go, it was kind of what you expect for something that involves, a bad guy that can take over characters somehow. The FF would have a tie-in where half the team is taken over by the bad guy, and the other half has to deal with them, and maybe also deal with all the horrible things they'll say. So yeah. Anyway, moving on, we've got Batman Urban Legends #2. Now, as you might recall, Urban Legends is an anthology series and has a handful of stories going on at once. Currently, there are 3 returning stories from last month: Red Hood, Grifter, and Outsiders. Where the Red Hood story left off, Red Hood was looking for Red Hood and Batman were looking into a drug called teardrops. Apparently, it turns out that the husband of a woman Red Hood was tracking down a lead and actually found someone high up on everything, and he was basically feeding his wife, his baby mama, and his kid teardrops. And he wasn't going to shoot him, but Jason did, killing him. So he calls Oracle, explains that he messed up. We get a flashback. Apparently his mother was an addict. And one time he was given some money to get some bread. When her dealer came by, it's kind of clear that they had an arrangement. Batman deals with some... Batman is tracking down Scarecrow-related leads, as teardrops appear to have been made similarly to made in a similar manner to fear toxin. Turns out the Scarecrow goons that Batman's dealing with now work for Mr. Freeze, and they were actually just going to get groceries for Freeze, but they're parolees with weapons, so it's called in. But Red Hood has taken Tyler, the kid he saved, back to his place, and he's trying to figure out what to do with him because, he's not gonna. He can't raise him. He's not Bruce. And we also find out that when he was a kid, Jason pushed his mom's drug dealer down the stairs. But apparently Batman wants to speak with Red Hood. They argue, they fight. Batman wins, and Tyler comes in and basically gets between Batman and Jason. And it's kind of just like, hey, he's a good guy. He's Red Hood. And the look on Batman's face is, oh my God, are you really going to go down this route too? What the hell, Jason? Anyways, next up we have an Oracle story entitled Ghost in the Machine. Little computer network related things are happening, and Oracle's kind of tracking it. It all seems to point to a woman named Vi Ross, who Barbara dealt with during the Joker War. So it turns out she's got a mobile unit prototype. Explain that she's got a telescoping antenna that doubles as a cane or weapon if needed, smart glasses, earbud for communications, pin button microphone, holographic sleeve smartphone, elegant stealth battery utility belt, solar battery charger buttons on the antenna, mobile server farmer bag, secure alternating mast ISP, classic bag for everything else, generator flats, cables in the seams of her pants to plug into computers. So yeah. So she's looking, turns out car gears are down. ATMs are down too. So she gets in contact with Orphan, Spoiler, and Nightwing. Explains what's going on. Turns out floppy disks were taken. But she also utilizes kind of hacks Gotham Public Works in an effort to meet up with Spoiler as quickly, and they find someone impersonating Vyros at a computer store, who then tries to ingest some cyanide or some anthrax, and also somewhat infects Spoiler and Barbara, but antibiotics should be fine. Turns out there's an update going on at one of the main branch of Gotham Bank, and yes, Vyros is there to utilize the floppy disks that she stole, because it's an older system but too expensive to replace. Vyros is taken down, and taken down, arrested, and taken. So yeah. Next up, we've got the Outsiders. Where we left off, Black Lightning had been kidnapped and was being held in a tower. The tower, turns out, was actually constructed of Metamorpho. Metamorpho was freed and they escaped, but yeah, basically he had a tattoo that was placed on, a mystical tattoo that was controlling him, placed on him, and they're trying to make sure it gets off of him, which is a little hard because, well, his epidermis is different. But turns out that they were kidnapped by the mother of Katana's late husband. Because apparently, Maseo, Katana's husband, or late husband, his soul is no longer in her blade. And it's thought that it's because her and Black Lightning have been getting closer. And so Shiori, Masayo's mother, kind of like, okay, well, I'll take the sword myself, and that way my son can return home. But Metamorpho and Black Lightning show up close to where Katana's being held, and fight off some of Shiori's henchmen, with Metamorpho splitting himself into numerous copies to take on the cannon fodder, while Black Lightning deals with the one who's actually important. Which brings us to the Grifter story. So the Grifter story, where we left off there, is we're starting at little bits of Grifter's past, or the Infinite Frontier Rebirth past of Grifter, as well as a current story where he is the bodyguard of Lucius Fox and dealing with living in Gotham. So we pick up in the past, shortly after Team 6 dealt with some of Mr. Freeze and some of his goons. Cobra, actually. A lot of the team were injured, including Cole's brother, Max, who was in fact killed. But Wayne Industries paid to basically put Grifter back together. In the present, the vehicle that Lucius and Grifter are in has been hit by a truck. Hitmen are going after Fox. Grifter takes care of them. But he also gets grazed along the neck. Comes to being taken care of by paramedics. Grifter says, "Hey, take care of Fox, then me." After the ambulance leaves, the other ambulance shows up, explaining that the call just came in. And the cops are also on scene too, so Grifter borrows a police motorcycle, saves Fox. Leviathan is after him. At the hospital, his neck is stitched up, but apparently the wounds are mostly healed. He then meets with a woman comes in, he starts flirting with her. It turns out she's his direct supervisor. Chanta Devi, global security head for Wayne Enterprises. And she explains that she's his boss and Lucius is her boss. She's been trying to talk to him, and so, he should set up an appointment with her. But, sure, things may have turned out well with Cash, but Lucius is trying to offer him an honest future. A few nights later, Grifter meets up with Toyman, who's hiring for a job. However, Red Hood shows up. Red Hood and Grifter duke it out. Red Hood seems to win, or Grifter seems to win, and Red Hood comes to with a note tag him saying, "Borrowed your gun and $100. Returned the gun, kept the cash. XOXO, Superman." Lying next to Red Hood is Toyman with a gunshot wound in his chest, and that is where the issue ends. Kind of cool getting Red Hood in two different stories. I'm biased on this because I'm a longtime fan of Grifter. So I'm, of course, heavily invested in the Grifter story and was from the moment it was announced. The Red Hood story, the Red Hood Batman story however, is just absolutely amazing. I'm definitely super invested in that one. The Outsiders one, I mean, it's cool. I think my thing with the Outsiders is that even though I know that Metamorpho, Katana, and Black Lightning are OG Outsiders, when I think of the Outsiders, I think of the Judd Winnick lineup, which included Roy Harper, Nightwing, Grace, Thunder, Black Lightning's daughter, I might add, and Shift, who would turn out to be a segment of Metamorpho. But yeah, that's... It's a little hard to get into the Outsiders with none of those characters present. So it's a neat story, but yeah, that it's not one that I guess I'm too invested in, but it's still a fun read. The Oracle story was actually a load of fun, and I absolutely loved it. I especially like that whole idea of her having like this, what looks to be a plain outfit, but is actually this high tech suit, basically. That was actually a really cool touch. Very nice. Anyways, moving on, we've got American Vampire 1976, number 7. Where we left off, our heroes have been betrayed. And that's not going to be dealt with at all in this issue. We get three stories about relating to events of the series. First off, December 1799 in Mount Vernon, George Washington is visited by apparently his dead son, who tells him, you're supposed to take a meeting tomorrow. Cancel the meeting. Don't meet with them because this land, you made a pact with vampires. Basically explains why Washington passed on the pact. Reneged on the agreement he made with the vampires. The Beast had resurrected Washington's son and brought some of its minions to Mount Vernon, leading him to go outside to prune the various trees, catch cold, and die. But it's also this land belongs to the Beast already. Then we get a story taking place in May of '73. Jim and I always forget her friggin' name. Pearl. Jim and Pearl meet with the new bookkeeper. They're looking for some information. The bookkeeper is a young girl named May Bunting. Jim asks if she's related to Will Bunting, distantly, but basically everything fits in a suitcase. She calls it the Omnibus. 8080 microprocessor. What they need should already be pulled up. but they go through lists of various species of Homo habilis hiding around the country in rural areas. Ones that vanished in the last 5 years. Yeah, but also kind of discussing, what kind of could the would have and should have beens with Jim, with Pearl saying, if only Felicia were here, because she knows more about all this than anyone alive. And Jim admits he kind of played a part in that, but she tries to, Pearl tries to explain it's not his fault, but, she also just made, but maybe you should actually go and talk to her. Your mistakes don't have to become hers. But they're attacked by Carpathian vampires. They shoot their way out, and that's where the story. They begin to shooting their way out, and that's where the story ends. And finally, in the Florida Everglades in December of 1970, Skinner shows up. He's under the name of Travis. Or wait, no, it's not Skinner, but Travis, one of the VMS guys, shows up. Apparently, friend of his is a kid. They got a band-aid called Bite Them Back, but yeah, kid's holding a gun for him. It's actually a radio transmitter, and it's supposed to get palmed into the Oval Office so that they can keep track of what's going on. They've heard tell that the Beast is trying to get in with the Secret Service. And that is where the kid's given a set of wooden fangs as a gift. But yeah, it's just it's kind of it's a bit jarring with the way that she took it. I was expecting kind of okay, let's pick up here, or okay, we're gonna get some hidden origin tale that we didn't know about. But no, just some quick an anthology issue. Anyways, our final book of the week is Rorscach, number 7. Where we left off, the investigator was tracking down leads, and the only lead he had left was Frank Miller. Yes, you heard me right, Frank Miller. So he goes to meet Miller, and Miller is dressed as Rorscach. But Miller explains to the investigator what's going on. There was a Meyerson and some others were involved in they had gone to a seance. It was recorded. They listened. Our investigator protagonist listened to the tape. Got the names. The only one who's at the seance that's still alive is Miller. One of the guys claimed, "Oh yeah, I heard what." It's explained the way it works is that the way they were thinking it was aliens and there was a connection between the aliens and the dead, and so you would record a question and then just kind of let it keep recording, and then later on you'd play it and you'd hear all those weird noises that the tape would make during the silence. That's the answer. You have to kind of slow it down. Yeah. But we get some it is very clearly meant to, this is supposed to be the Frank Miller, by the way. It's explained he wrote in the 80s he wrote this brilliant, this incredibly well-received comic that he's been kind of coasting off of for the last few decades, entitled The Dark Fife Returns. Yeah. But Will Meyerson and Laura Kidd went to speak to him, and they figured that the spirit man they need to talk to is the actual identity is none other than Dr. Manhattan. So they do it. Questions asked. the whole thing about, oh yes, Dr. Manhattan and the heroes, Dr. Manhattan hit all the heroes so that the squids, when the squids show up, they think, oh hey, Dr. Manhattan's defeated, we're good. But so Miller does the the lead in, we're at the house, all this, and the question is asked. They play it back, and apparently it says it apparently told Turley, or it apparently told Myers and Laura to kill Turley. Why Miller's dressed, it still doesn't make all that much sense as to why Miller's dressed as Rorschach, but there's still a few more issues to go. So yeah. Also, he's adopted a lot of Rorschach's mannerisms. But that is where the issue ends. And that all, it's a not a bad. It was one of the better issues of the series. I've honestly been feeling a lot like the series has been trying to just cash in on Watchmen's ongoing popularity. But this for the first time, I said, okay, this is actually a decent one. And I don't blame the creative team. It's a solid creative team. It's just that, when you're kind of put into a box, yeah. Anyway, that's all for this week. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying live long and rock hard.